Gentrification is a buzzword that's used by many different people in many different ways. How we've seen it here in Hamilton is it could mean for some renewal, economic development, prosperity, and for others it could mean displacement, losing of their communities, being priced out of their neighborhoods. It's often buoyed by the artistic communities, and oftentimes LGBTQ communities will come in and believe in a neighborhood, and then next thing you know, the high-end restaurants come, and then next thing you know, the condos come, and then next thing you know, everybody's pushed out.
Gentrification is a phenomenon that has happened in Hamilton, with places like Hess Village, Locke Street. Most recently, it began to happen in James Street North, triggered by a wave of artists looking for cheap living and studio space.
Generally speaking, when artists seek out space, it's because they need space to have studios, performances, whatever, and because it's not a highly well-funded, well-paying situation. Generally, artists will take spaces that are substandard and subpar because they can use them and turn them into something. What happens then in these places become desirable. There's a lot of collateral benefits that happen. Businesses come up because wherever there's people, there's a market. So do we blame the artists for that market? Well, no, we can't blame. It's just that it's what happens because that's who we are.
I recently moved to Hamilton about a month ago from Toronto. I work as a furniture designer and maker, and I do sculpture. And I moved to Hamilton because couldn't afford Toronto anymore. There was a time a few years ago where I definitely wasn't interested in coming here. It was just like there wasn't enough established that I was interested in, I suppose. And coming here now is kind of to benefit from a lot of the changes that have been happening, but also now that I've moved here, I'm kind of recognizing what those benefits are costing the city or the people that lived here before.
Quite often, the first people to be displaced are the artists themselves. As business encroaches, as economic opportunities encroach, then these places become unaffordable.
But so now what's happened is a lot of people have been forced east. About 4 years ago, I moved to Victoria in Barton, right? And I was all my friends were like, well, bye forever. You're so far out of downtown, and it's a 5-minute walk, right? But now I'm actually one of the closest people I know to James Street. Everyone's been pushed more to Gage Park, far northeast, because you can't afford to make art and pay $3,000 a month. That's like living in Toronto, and that's why Toronto's art kind of sucks.
Then you have the secondary thing about how that expands into local residential areas, and where now people want to be close to where all the action is, so there's pressures on housing. So then other people would be displaced.
The North End is one of those areas, a neighborhood caught between James Street and the North Harbour. Property prices have risen there due to its proximity to these now desirable areas.
Back 20 years ago, this was more of a low-income area. It's not like that as much now. The property values have increased. It's harder to purchase a property down here as a homeowner, as an owner-occupied property. Just to give you guys an idea, a house of approximately $165,000 10 years ago is now valued at $370,000. So there's a big jump. Whether there's the factors of the stadium, whether the GO train station, and all the upgrades that have happened in the area, obviously that's all going to play factor with respect to the property housing, right? When I start thinking of the North End, I'm so used to the North End being tight-knit. I don't see it being busy like Toronto. And that's kind of where I'm scared. Once these condos go up, are we going to be as busy? Is everything going to change kind of like with a Toronto feel? They used to say, it was the stomping grounds for the Hells Angels. Oh, the bikers and this and that. There was a lot of bars in the area before. There was a lot of crime down here at one point. And I think it was because of the low income housing. There's a lot of crime. But in the last, the last 20 years, it has cleaned up because it's blossomed so much, the stigma has gone away.
I know gentrification is a dirty word to some people, and I get kind of annoyed with that only because Barton Street's a good example. Barton Street used to be a very good commercial street. All those businesses were full. All those streets along the side, leading off of Barton, were full of families. So they were not so much full of boarded up stores and businesses and transient renters. That was not what it once was. So I kind of resent the fact when people think that this is the way it is now and this is the way it should stay. Because no, that's not the way it's always been. It was quite different at one time.
And now I hear there's some talk that Barton Street is the next area where artists will go. And I don't consider artists, myself included, unwitting dupes of the gentrifiers or the developers. It's just a natural thing. That's what we need. We need space.
You know, you get your cool, awesome playground for a couple of years and then it gets ripped away for condos. And for people who want to pretend they live somewhere where artists live, when it's no, your presence literally meant you displaced someone else, right? People kept being oh, I bought this studio, this house that I'm turning into studios for my kids. And it's you displaced 5 Hamilton artists to do that though, right? So it's A, those artists are going to hate your kids and hate their art. And it doesn't build community well. And it's you can improve places without displacing people. There's no need for it to be so greedy.
The threat of displacement remains an issue for Hamilton. Inclusionary zoning is one of the strategies the city is turning to fight this.
The inclusionary zoning model, it basically consists of developments being mandated to have in their total housing stock certain units that are on the affordability range. So if it's condos, then maybe it's condos that are available for purchase below market value. If it's rentals, then it would have in it rentals that are also included in the affordability range. The biggest challenge we have with inclusionary zoning is that what is affordable today will not be affordable tomorrow. Because as the price of rent rises and Ontario Works stays the same and ODSP stay the same, then it becomes less and less possible for Hamiltonians to stay in this city. Because at the end of the day, if they're only getting $700 and change a month for Ontario Works or social assistance, then all of a sudden that $900 apartment becomes completely unaffordable.
So if we're not taking care of providing opportunities or safe places for people to live, raise families, go to school within their communities, well, we're failing miserably, and we're just creating a bubble that will eventually fail.
5 years ago, if you'd asked me if I would move to Hamilton, I would have said no. But that was because things weren't as nice as they are now, nice, quote unquote, on James Street as they are now. And that's one of the reasons I came, is that there was a massive change.
I mean, this area has not stopped. Houses are being sold or going up, and they're being sold within a couple days.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.